This isn't a video that I wanted to make, but I think it needs to be made. There's been a lot of accusations going around that Insta360 has been asking creators to not disclose sponsorships when they're working directly with Insta360. And so this video, I want to go through my experience working with Insta360 and ultimately why I removed all of my X4 videos and why I've decided to no longer work with this brand. But also in this video, I just want to talk about sponsorship disclosures in general. And when I've been speaking to different creators about this whole Insta360 Instagate that's going on, I've heard a lot of things like, oh, my video's not sponsored, it's kind of a gray area. But the reality is, if you're getting paid in any way from a company, you need to disclose. And so if you are a creator, make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I want to talk about what it means to disclose your sponsorships and the different ways that you can disclose. So let's dig into Insta360 and let me go through my story. So I had a sponsorship for the X4. Now I've been working with Insta360 in the past. I've worked with them on a bunch of different products, and they've given me the freedom to do some really cool projects around these different cameras. So I've always had a really good relationship with Insta360. It wasn't until around the Ace Pro is when things kind of got weird in the company. It feels like there was a shift, and it felt like there was more demands on us as creators to create these specific marketing pieces for the company. Now with the Ace Pro, I was not sponsored for that video, yet they were asking me to send over that video to get approvals and all of this, things that you do for a sponsorship, but my video wasn't sponsored. And so things kind of got weird around the Ace Pro, and there was a lot of rumblings with other creators just talking about their negative experience working with Insta360 around that launch. However, the rabbit hole gets a little deeper. So around the time of the X4 launch, there's been these accusations that Insta360 is asking creators to not disclose sponsorships, which in a lot of countries, that's illegal. You can't do that. And at the very least, it's just wrong because you're being untruthful. You're doing a review, saying all these things about the product, but the reality is, the company is telling you what to say, and you're ultimately just making a commercial, but it's coming off as a review. This is the whole issue with reviews and products to begin with. When a product is sponsored, it's not a review. It can never be a review because when a product is sponsored, the company who's sponsoring that video has a hand in what you say, and they also approve things. So they're not going to let you necessarily make the video that you would want to make if they're paying you to make that video. So whenever you see a sponsored video, just know that the company is involved in that video. It's not a quote-unquote review. So this is why it's such a big deal that Insta360 was asking creators to not disclose sponsorships. However, people can say things online. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. But that's why I wanted to dig into my story a little bit. So with the X4 launch, I was doing a 2-video deal with Insta360 having 2 sponsored videos. The first was going to be one of these launch videos at the time of the X4 release. And then a month later, I would do something like a beginner's guide where I teach you how to use the camera. That was my sponsorship deal with the company. So the X4 was launched around NAB, which is a massive camera convention. And so I had a lot going on up until that convention. And I know Insta360 and every other camera company had a lot going on as well. However, they really wanted me to get that video ready for the launch at 6 a.m. on whatever day that the camera launched. And so my video wasn't finished until the day before. I shot a bunch of B-roll, but I really needed to shoot my A-roll. So I got up super early, headed out to a cool location, and shot my video. And I thought it turned out pretty good. Now, I spent all day editing this video standing up at a dresser because my hotel room didn't have a desk, and I just knocked it out. And then I sent it to Insta360 about halfway through the day because I wanted to make sure to get feedback. This is a sponsored video, so I need to get feedback from them, shots I need to change, different things I need to adjust, and I need time to do that to be able to launch the video the next day at 6 a.m. Now, I didn't hear anything from them all night, so I was shot out of bed at like 3 a.m., looking for notes because Insta360 is in China. So I figured they would have sent me some notes late in the night and I could make these adjustments and re-upload the video. Well, my review link was through Frame.io. That's where I do all of my review links through. And I could see that nobody had watched it and there was no notes. So I took my video and uploaded it to YouTube because if they hadn't sent me any notes yet, I figured video's pretty good, upload it to YouTube. I unlisted it and sent them that link and asked one more time, is the video ready to go for launch? I have it uploaded, I have it ready to go, everything's ready. Well, at 5:26, I finally got my notes. And so I only got one note, and this is what it says. Hi, Jeven, here's the feedbacks on the video. Can we remove this shot as it looks too compressed at 34 seconds? It is also okay to not mention that the video is sponsored if you need to match audio. And so Insta360 is asking me to cut out this shot using the YouTube editor, which basically cuts out the sponsored by as well. And so at the time, I didn't really think too much of it. That's kind of a weird request. Like, I can't take out my sponsorship disclosure. So I quickly took the shot, switched it out for another shot, re-uploaded the video, kept the sponsored by Insta360 in there, and then released the video as quickly as I could, which I missed launch, which is fine. It was like within the hour of launch, but I didn't really think too much of it. And then I went to the conference, hung out with a bunch of other creators, went and shot in the desert for a few days after that. And this didn't really seem like that big of an issue until I saw Farouk from iPhondo posting about other creators who have been asked to remove sponsorship disclosures. And that's when I thought about this message that I got on this X4 launch. The only note that I got was about removing my sponsorship disclosure, but they said it was because of this compressed shot. So it seemed like kind of a sly way to get me to cut out my sponsorship disclosure. And so after digging into this, talking to a few other creators, I ended up canceling the sponsorship, deleting my videos, and just stepping away from Insta360. And I just said, I'm done with Insta360 and we're going to part ways. And I didn't really make a big stink beyond that. And then iPhondo put out his video around this whole situation, and I feel like everything just kind of blew up from there. After doing a little bit more digging, I saw some more X4 videos pop up on my timeline, and I saw one from a massive creator, like 15 million subscribers, that posted it, and it was very much a sponsored video. It felt like a sponsored video, but there was no sponsorship disclosure whatsoever. And so I tweeted about this and just asked, is this a sponsored video? Because it feels like it. And then there was no response from Insta360. However, the video all of a sudden had a sponsorship disclosure in the description. Now, that's like not the way you'd go about doing sponsorship disclosures. However, all of a sudden, the text changed. And I noticed a lot of other videos that were around the X4 started adding this different text. And so it almost felt like whack-a-mole, where creators would be putting text in their description to say that this is sponsored because it wasn't clear in the video. And so I reached out to Insta360 and asked them a few questions about what's going on. And this kind of solidified why I'm done working with them altogether. But it's something that you should probably hear as well if you are someone who wants to work with Insta360 or if you want to purchase their cameras. So I asked them about removing my sponsorship disclosure, and they said it was just the shot was too compressed and they wanted to take that shot out. And so I asked them, would they have been okay with me removing my sponsorship disclosure because of that shot and not having a sponsorship disclosure in the video? And this is what they said. At the time, we genuinely wanted you to fix the issue in the video, the low quality footage. And the sponsored mention was casually in the exact spot. Internally, we never wanted you to remove the sponsorship disclaimer in your video. Your question about what would have happened if you removed it and released the video is hard to answer. This is before all the cases started. And being honest, with our previous practice, maybe we wouldn't have required it, since according to the FTC, it's up to the creator to decide to disclose or not. So if I would have cut that shot out, they would have been okay with it. That's a major problem. And that was a red line for me because I've done a lot of sponsorship deals in the past, so I know how I have to disclose. However, Insta360 has said they work with over 1,500 creators. There's a lot of creators in there who don't know all the rules of disclosure. And if they ask the same thing of these creators, there's a good chance that those creators would have gone along with it. And now they're in jeopardy of hurting their reputation and their channel and ultimately doing things that are illegal according to the FTC. Now, I also asked Insta360 about them telling creators to remove their disclosures. And they flat out told me that we have identified a handful of cases where we directly asked/suggested the creator to not disclose the sponsorship, and it won't be acceptable internally anymore. So basically, this was an okay policy until we brought it to the spotlight. And Insta360 would have been continuing this practice had creators not actually spoken out about it. So with all this in mind, and also just my experience of the last couple launches, I just don't want to work with Insta360 anymore. And if you're a creator who's currently working with them, you're under contract with them, or they come to you in the future and want to do a project with you, ultimately you have to make that decision. And with any brand that you work with, you have to think about what does that association mean when that brand is attached to your brand. And to Insta360, just do better. Like moving forward, I hope everything changes. I hope you guys have clear terms with the people that you sponsor. And I hope that things will go in the right direction moving forward. However, I do want to talk about just sponsorship disclosures in general. So for creators, if your video is sponsored here in the US, you have to clearly disclose that that video is sponsored. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. So per the FTC guidelines, you need to put your sponsorship disclosure in a place that's hard to miss. And you just need to be clear. And looking at one of their documents, it says, if making an endorsement in a video, the disclosure should be in the video and not just in the description. Viewers are more likely to notice disclosures made in both audio and video because some viewers may watch without sound and others may not notice superimposed words. So this is a big thing, and this is something I've seen a lot of creators around the X4 do. They'll put their sponsorship disclosure in the video, but it will just say sponsored by Insta360 or something like brought to you by Insta360, and it's small and it's like down here or it's like over here in the corner, and they don't mention it whatsoever. A lot of times I'll be driving, I'll have my phone up here somewhere on my dash, and I'll have a video be playing, but I'm not actually watching the video. So in that case, if they didn't verbally say it, I wouldn't know a video is sponsored. And by making it super small and in the corner or just in the bottom or like really quick, like I've seen a lot of creators where it's like 2 seconds, boom, out of it. Well, that's not clear. And the whole point of a sponsorship disclosure is that it's clearly stated that this video was paid for by X. Now, I've heard of some other creators talk about year sponsorships and this specific video wasn't sponsored. And I think that if you're sponsored by a company for your channel and you're making a video where there's a product from that company in it and featured, well, that video, you should at least say that this channel is sponsored by Insta360. Whether or not that specific video was sponsored, if the whole channel is, and you're using their products, well, you need to say that your channel is sponsored by this company. And even if you're free to say whatever you want about the company, you're still being sponsored by them. And so you should have that clarity with your audience. There's no reason that we should be practicing deceitful marketing tactics on the behalf of these companies. It just looks really bad for you as a creator, and ultimately it hurts everyone because then the viewers who watch our videos aren't going to trust any of us, any of the creators out there who are making videos around the same types of products. Now, the other way I've heard of brands sponsoring videos is they'll pay for something in the video. For example, like a boat trip. The company will pay for that boat trip, but they're not actually sponsoring the video. That still needs to be disclosed. You could say something as simple as like, this boat trip was provided by whatever brand, but this video is my own thoughts and the company didn't get to see it before I posted it. Just being clear with your audience is going to be the most important thing that you need to do moving forward. And so for me, when I'm making my videos, I try to be super clear when a video is sponsored. I put it on screen, I say sponsored by, I say it out loud. This video is sponsored by. If you're doing any tactics to try and minimize the fact that it's sponsored, you're not being honest with your audience, and you're ultimately going to lose the trust with your audience. So I'm hoping that this whole situation with Insta360 has some effect on the whole camera niche as a whole, because I think there's too many creators that are in the gray area and don't think they need to disclose properly. But the reality is we need to disclose. If we're paid, creators need to disclose. If you're given a free product or you're given a product to test for a little bit, you should mention it in your video and say that it was a free product or that you're using a loaner. Give the audience all the information and they can decide. They're watching a bunch of videos. They're still going to watch your videos if it's sponsored. All right, that's enough on this rant. Back to the normal type of content on this channel. Insta360, do better.